Yep, you can see the slides.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Corey Smith, principal at Rock Hill Elementary. And with me today I have my assistant principal, Fanny Catsianis, and our leadership fellow, who's also throwing the roles as assistant principal this year, Sarah Harris. And this is a value-added presentation for my EDD program through Carson Newton. So the human brain is the most outstanding object in the world. It functions 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, whether we're sleeping, awake, no matter what we're doing, the brain's always on. And for centuries, we've been trying to figure out how to measure what the brain is doing. So one of the systems that we've come up with to help measure the progress that students have made and growth that students have made is the value-added system. So for the next few minutes, we're going to talk about the founding of the value-added systems and kind of where we're going to go with the research, or where I'm going to go with my research on it. I don't think we've ever heard a teacher say, I can't wait to get back to lesson planning and analyzing data. I know that's coming up next week for a lot of our teachers in our first week back as we work toward professional development, but that is not what we're here for, in the sense of that's not what drives teachers. However, that is a very important statement of what drives what teachers do. Technical definition for value added. Value added is a statistical method used to measure teachers' and schools' impact on students' academic progress or growth from year to year. This measures how much gain or growth a student makes over time and can be plotted as it is for height or weight or any other statistical measurement that you want to do for a person. Our two founding fathers of value added, in 1971, Dr. Eric Hansen was the guy that kind of came up with the framework for what would become the work that Dr. William Sanders would do here at UT. And we kind of joke, are they visionaries or statistical madmen? So in 1971, as I said, they came up with 3 fundamental policy questions that needed to be addressed. Do teachers count? Are schools operated efficiently? And what characteristics of a teacher or classroom are important? This was kind of the framework that was started that William Sanders and some of the other folks picked up on as a way to start measuring what teachers do, or the purposes of what we're going to do in order to measure teachers' effectiveness. So moving on into the early 80s, Dr. Sanders showed that there are measurable differences among schools, teachers with regard to the effective indicators of student learning. This was when the refinement and application of true statistical models to determine the impact of teachers started to come into play. What really pushed his work from being something that was done here locally in Tennessee, in East Tennessee, was the authorization of No Child Left Behind in 2001. So why is TN value-added system so important? Value-added is widely used. Currently over 40 states and District of Columbia are using some sort of value-added measure to plot and track student growth. The Tennessee system is kind of the cornerstone. So the work that Dr. Sanders did here in Tennessee is generally the foundational system that's used by most school districts that adopt value-added systems, as stated at the bottom. So what does value-added do? It's a mathematical formula designed to determine if teachers make individual contribution to a student's learning or growth. And this process is designed to try to eliminate all the factors that can influence a student's growth. Background, as far as family background, poverty, race, ethnic genders, ethnicity and genders are all things that they try to eliminate out of this formula just to look at straight growth for a student. There are some issues with the value added. Dr. Sanders did admit in 2006 in a briefing that he was doing with some members of the education department that value added model efforts do not give equivalent results. Some of the more simplistic value added approaches should be rejected because of a serious bias or unreliable estimates of what they provide. So we do need to be careful of the systems that we choose in order to measure a student's growth. An additional issue is many teachers, many educators in general, just don't understand how the system works, and they view it as a punitive tool to justify teacher removal.
So we're looking at the state of Tennessee. Are they using a non-simplistic approach?
No, the one that Tennessee uses is the foundation for it is the work that Dr. Sanders did, and his is not a simplistic approach. It's very Yeah, so there's a lot of parts and pieces. They really did work to try to remove any of the potential bias that are in the systems out of that, so that they can get a true measure of if student A is placed in teacher A's classroom, what are they going to get for growth? If that student moves to teacher B's classroom, what are they going to get growth, regardless of what their background was?
So when we hear often teachers complaining that it's a flawed system, we can now say,
Part of what I'm going to look at, and we'll get that in a couple of slides, is one, I'm going to look at and make sure that the value-added system that we are currently using is valid, just to reinforce that, yes, this is a good measure of whether a student is growing or not. And then also discuss a little bit what value-added can and cannot measure. And then we'll look at, ways that teachers are influenced by what value-added does, or what their level of understanding is, and how that may influence what value-added can be used for. Again, continuation. Additionally, one must realize value-added does or does not tell us. This piggybacks off what you're saying. Value-added is simply whether a student grew or not. It doesn't tell us necessarily why the student grew or how the student grew. There's no basis on curriculum or anything like that. It just says we put these 5 students in the classroom with teacher A, and these 5 students grew under teacher A. We put different 5 students in with teacher B, and those students didn't grow. But it doesn't tell us necessarily why. That's our job as administrators to figure that out. So why is it important? It's used to quantify the impact a teacher has on a student. It's value-added has become an important factor in teacher evaluation scores. As we all know, it's 50% of teachers who have growth scores part of their evaluation on their individual classroom, and then the rest of the teachers, it's on a school or a district basis, depending on what their role in that district is. Data trends that show statistical proven measures using value-added formulas to predict student growth, and then we'll use correctly to begin a conversation on how to improve instruction. Effective uses should be combined with curriculum review to determine what is effective learning trends. Should not be used for a basis for analyzing teacher performance. The test question item analysis can be done to determine student strengths and areas that need improvement. So basically, this gives us the foundation for what we do with professional learning communities. So we can sit down and we can pull all this data in and say, hey, we got student A or teacher A is doing a great job in math in 5th grade. Why are they doing a great job in math in 5th grade? What curriculum materials are they using? Are they using the same other materials as other teachers? So the point behind the data analysis, the point behind professional learning community is to try to replicate success multiple times across different classrooms. So why is the research important to you? All right, first hypothesis, value-added measures are valid in determining a teacher's ability to grow students. Second, educators' lack of professional development and understanding of value-added measures have led to the current political climate claiming that value-added systems are not accurate. So in the first premise, again, going back to the PLC model, we have this data that says teacher is effective or isn't effective. It's our job as administrators to go back in and work through that data to figure out what the teacher may or may not be doing, or may not need to change in order to be more effective. And then, again, on the second one, you hear a lot of people talk about value-added scores. You hear a lot of people talk about TVAS, but how often, when they come to us at the beginning of the year, you're claiming for their 15%, 35%, we don't know what to claim. We don't know what this means. We don't, we're at a pretty data-rich school, and I think a lot of the staff here has a pretty good understanding of value-added, and I still get a lot of those questions. So I'm sure schools that don't have a good understanding of data, or when I sit in principals meetings and I listen to other principals talk about it, I know there's other schools that don't have that good understanding. So if we can increase the knowledge of what value-added systems do and how to best use that data, will people review it with less cynicism than they do now. So what about specific considerations? The current value-added models, the way that we now use it for analysis, systems being widely used across the country are reliable and valid measure for teachers' competency. We'll be specifically looking at the TVAS model here in Tennessee, because that is kind of the foundation for a lot of states' systems. And then many educators do not feel that value-added scores accurately reflect a valid measure of a teacher's ability to grow students. So we'll look at that one in further depth also through the research. Methods, we're going to collect and analyze data through the Knox County, Tennessee Department of Ed. Probably going back to 2011 is what we're looking at right now, because that should give you a good time frame. may go back to 2009 when they revamped the value-added, the way they looked at the value-added measures, but I think 2011 on should probably give us a pretty good overview. There'll be an online survey of teacher and administrators who are measured by value-added to check for their understanding, and then there will be further in-depth personal interview with teachers and administrators that are selected out of the initial survey for refinement on what their understanding of and what they would need in order to help maybe boost their understandings. And it'll be a mixed method of research with quantitative and qualitative. The quantitative piece being the TVAS data, the qualitative piece being the surveys from the teachers and administrators. So some things to remember is we don't teach the test. The test measures what we taught. I was one of the first classes that graduated under No Child Left Behind, and that's what I took away from that. I know a lot of teachers feel that's kind of reversed, but I really feel that we've done a lot of work in Tennessee on curriculum, and that test is really measuring what we're supposed to be teaching in the classroom. Value added is designed to measure the effectiveness of a teacher by comparing student growth from 1 year to the predicted student growth based on past years of performance. So that's why we always look at that. In the end, we like to look at that 3 years worth of data, so we really have a good understanding of, yes, this is what we predicted the student would do in 3rd grade, this is what they accomplished, this is what they did in 4th grade, and then we take those two measures and see where they're going to go from there. And then we use corrective value-added analysis to be a powerful springboard for deeper conversation of instructional methods, best practices. And the children want the same thing we want: to laugh, to be challenged, to be entertained, and delighted. And those are the references for this presentation. So, any questions or thoughts?
My immediate question is, since we don't have testing for last year,
Yes.
is there anything that you can use? Can you use the SGP from STAR? Or-
So, there's a few different things floating around out there that potentially could be used. My hesitation in doing that is all of a sudden now you're starting to bury the data a little bit. So I'd rather look at, those years where we have solid TBOS data and say, okay, this is, accurately measuring what TBOS set out to do. And then make the correlation on the back end of this is what administrators and teachers are saying and what they understand for value added, and that's kind of how they measure it out. I mean, they've gone out through the data team downtown, they've gone out and they can tell you if a kid scores, 572 in 3rd grade on a TPAP, the chances are that kid's going to score 21 on their ACT in their junior year in high school. And the correlation, I want to say the correlation was somewhere around 0.89, one being a perfect correlation. So, it's extremely high correlation of what they've done. And they've done it with the Pioneer test, they've done it with the 2 years that we had SAT 10, they did it with those. So there's been lots of different models that they've used to do that. The concern is you start looking at different tests and we have 2 years worth of data, that type of thing. So you start getting maybe there's some bias or some things aren't going to be questioned more readily than if you just have a solid 4-year block of data and say this is what was the research was based on. So I think it would be a little bit more accurate and less open to questioning.
I love this. I'll be really interested to see how you take the data and then drill it down to PLCs, because to me that's the missing piece.
That's one thing I think that I've learned over the last few years since we've really started using PLCs in more meaningful ways. I think Fanny would agree with that too, that teachers really take that data, whether it's STAR data, whether it's TBOS data, which is a shame that we don't have TBOS data this year, but they really have that opportunity to sit down and say, you know what, this is what I did in my classroom, this is what I'm seeing for results, and have that conversation saying, hey, well, geez, your results are a little bit better, what did you do? Or, geez, I didn't quite do as well in math as you did, how did you tweak your instruction to get better results? So, yeah, it is, to me, it really is how to the springboard of those deeper conversations. So people need to realize that, hey, this is a number. This shows whether the student grew or not. Let's figure out why the student did or